Hello and welcome to another Wednesday night live. We've had a few. I think this is number 9 or number 10. If you're in the UK, it's 9:15 a.m. If you're in Australia, it's 8:15 p.m. Well, if you're in Melbourne, and if you are in America, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. So today I've got Mike Carroll with me from MC Counselling. We're going to talk about addiction and about his life and lots of other things. So he's here and quite a few of you are coming in already. So let's get, not that one, let's get Mike in here in a minute. So hello, good morning to Leandra. Hello, Mike, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you and actually speak to you.
Totally, Daniel. It's all been on DMs, hasn't it, for the past
I
few
know.
weeks? And what an honour it is to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, look, since we've been chatting backwards and forwards, I wanted to get to know you and get you on here and maybe even on a podcast as well, because I think what you're doing is really good. It's really important. And I don't think I've spoken to anyone else who's an addiction counsellor. I have spoken to someone who was a young alcoholic. So I think it'll be really interesting to get your perspective on what's happening around the world. But look, we'll get some of it now so that then people can hear you. And then when the podcast comes out, they go, wow, I love listening to Mike Carroll. I want to go back and listen to that podcast.
Oh, you're very kind. That's awesome. And thanks again for having me. So how would you like me to start today or tonight?
Well, first of all, I thought I'd ask you what you thought of the weather, because in Victoria here in Australia, it's bloody freezing tonight.
I just went out before and I was like, oh my God, how has it changed so much? It was so windy here in Seasborough earlier today, and that stopped, but it's still very cold.
I know, but yesterday we had, 29 degrees, and now today
Yes.
It feels like we're in winter.
It's totally 24 seasons in one day, even though it just goes from 29 to probably 9 at the moment outside. But yes.
We've got the Bipolar Bachelor podcast. He said he can't hear us, and now he says he can, so that's good.
You probably have
and
the sound turned down.
Good morning from Use Your Words, and I've done the other one, so yeah, that's good. So it sure is I have the heater on, says one blueprintess. So if you want to ask any questions, put them in the comments and we'll talk about them as we can. But so let's start with you, Mike, and tell us a little bit about your life and how you've come to becoming a counsellor.
Yeah, no worries at all. So basically I was adopted. So my biological mother was 14 when she was pregnant with me. She came out from Fiji to Australia to have me and stay with my aunt, or her aunt, my great aunt in Murrumbina. Had the pregnancy, went back to Fiji as if like nothing had happened. Put me up for adoption.
Wow.
So it was like, yeah, exactly. And so we've got a bit of trauma going on there, a bit of separation anxiety, some might call it. And then I had my adopted parents, and they adopted another sister. Or another daughter, so it was my sister, and we never really got on. And then they divorced for a while later. They divorced, and then we found out that my biological father had actually passed away, and so that was pretty traumatic. Even though I'd never met him, because it was like a father figure. Even if he wasn't there at that time, I was hoping maybe down the track to be able to meet him. That wasn't going to be the case. And so, and then 10 years later, my father passes away, my adopted father. So there's lots of like negativity. There's lots of also racism, discrimination growing up in Australia in the 80s that I suffered myself. And it's funny because a lot of people around me said, I never saw that. I'm like, yes, but you're not me, and
exactly.
And what I did find that was good, that I loved, was drugs and alcohol. And it was actually at that time that I was able to really talk about myself and express myself in ways that I hadn't been able to do before. And that was, I suppose, due to the drugs, and obviously our inhibitions going down, whatever we want to say is the reason behind it. But what was amazing for me is that I found out so much about other people, normally at around 3 in the morning when you're not really up to hearing that stuff, but you still hear stuff about people. And that, how normal other people's lives were to what we could see. And then under the surface, there was lots more going on. I also never felt that I was enough. I never felt that I was loved because I was never told that. I was shown it in other ways, as people have said to me, even in recent years, yes, but it's not necessarily what people will say. It's their actions. It's what they do. I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes a lot of sense. And so having drugs was good because that did make sense, and it did feel good for a long time. And then it didn't feel good. And then there was other things going on that I felt that I definitely wasn't normal. And so tried heaps of drugs and alcohol to avoid intimacy and to have problems with every relationship that I had, to the level that, you could kind of get really depressed by. I did. You could get very anxious about life in general. But I decided to turn it around and use it as an opportunity to learn more about other people. And I loved being on the radio. And so I got a job on the radio, and it was during doing Hot 30 countdowns across the east coast of Australia. So for people in Australia, or people that know Australia, from Newcastle all the way up to far north Queensland. And in doing that,
not Melbourne.
No, not Melbourne, not Sydney, but Newcastle.
Yep.
And then in doing that, it really meant that, you had all this huge audience, millions of people that could tune in because, hey, we're going, Daniel, back before the time of this, Instagram,
Internet.
Social media, internet, exactly. And so in doing that, it meant that people had to listen to the radio, the local radio station, to hear the latest tunes. And they were, scheduled according to whatever you vote for, So the new Britney Spears song, the new Christina Aguilera song, the new Avril Lavigne song. Now I'm really showing my age. And all of that stuff was played.
No, you're not, Mike. You're not showing your age, because I thought you would be around my age, and I was thinking that you would say stuff like the B-52s and Jimmy Barnes or Cold Chisel.
Oh, well, actually, there's a story about AC/DC, which we can bring up later. But it was really interesting because I got lots of young people calling me up, talking about what I now understand as trauma and traumatic experiences and complex trauma, things that I didn't know how to answer. I was giving away CDs, Daniel. I mean, it was simple. Call up 1311, whatever it was. You call the 1 after 10, call the 2 after 10, no, call the 3 after 10. And then you're like, hey, I want to talk to you. I'm like, oh, I don't have, okay, I'll put you on hold. Next one. And then I was like, actually, I want to be able to do more than just back announce and forward announce and listen to lots of music every week and decide what music would be on the radio, which, don't get me wrong, very cool job. Because I was on that path, that journey of understanding people better and being able to also understand people and understand what they were going through, be able to be in a position to help them, to help change their lives. And so I started a counselling diploma, which, Daniel, I was terrible at school.
Before you go on to that, can I just go back a bit? So you said you were a radio announcer, you had millions of people ringing in and they wanted some sort of counselling stuff. But how did that make you feel if you felt like in the early part of your life you never felt really loved, and then all of a sudden you're getting all these people calling you all the time? How does that make you feel then?
Well, it was perfect, wasn't it? Because it was the validation from others that made me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And that's the key, obviously, because by having validation from other people, they can then take it away from us.
Yeah.
If we have self-validation, we don't need that validation from others. And that's such an important point for everybody to take in, and to find ways for every individual to love themselves, because it might sound like a wank, or it might sound, like that's just, you don't do that. But it is actually the answer to being able to get through COVID, to being able to get through what's going on in the world at the moment. Because if you do love yourself, you can love others, and you can't love anybody else until you can really love yourself. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learnt. But I went and started doing this counselling diploma, and I'm not academic, so not academic. And I was definitely determined to make it so people could understand what was going on. And it took me so long to finish this diploma, but it was such a life-changing opportunity and time for me, because I left Sydney, where I was gambling huge amounts of money on poker machines, using ridiculous amounts of speed, marijuana. I could do 100 cones a day quite easily, then go on the radio, just to give you an idea. So it was pretty bad. And then I started working on Nova, basically came to Melbourne to have a different life. And that definitely presented itself with being able to study and to also be able to make new friends, and work in a youth-specific drug and alcohol facility. And that was really good, because that showed me really the system or the way that we help people. And even back then, as I was learning, I could still see issues that were going on and ways that weren't that fantastic to help people, because I didn't feel it really was helping them. However, I wasn't them. I was just there to do a job. And so over the years, I worked at different drug and alcohol agencies. I also worked in radio. I did traffic reporting for Melbourne Radio on all the FM stations. And that was interesting, lots of fun. And pretty much everyone, you know, that listened to the radio would hear my voice, because I was on a multiple of stations all the time. So I still had that need for acceptance and to be able to go anywhere and everyone would know you. I still hadn't discovered that, you know, I needed to love me before anything else could really happen. I obviously had to get rid of my addictions too, and to be able to move forward in a life without that. And that did take a while, because on and off, you know, you would use things, blah, blah, blah. So then I was like, okay, many years later, trying to do 2 jobs, having MDMA, methylene dioxymethamphetamines, basically, in essence, the ingredient in those ecstasy pills from the UK, and back in the day, the green Mitzies were the ones, the green Mitsubishi ones. And basically, they, you know, got into that so I could work, not to party, but to work. And that's really different when we get into something just to actually work, not party. And
because I guess you were actually, you were exhausting yourself, weren't you? And then you still needed to carry on and work.
That's right. So trying to deal with 4 hours sleep and literally 20 hours of work a day. It really, that kind of lifestyle can make anyone psychotic, let alone having synthetic MDMA, and then to add to that synthetic MDMA, no sleep. And then seeing snakes in my house that then were snakes that were in my bed, which then meant I couldn't go to bed to sleep, which meant I just fell asleep on my in my study, basically, you know, head on the desk. So it was no good, and I went to the I went to the psychotic ward, psychiatric ward. I can't even get my words out. 3 times, and in doing that, still saw how failed the system was for people, and that, well, you know, I've always loved that Gandhi slogan or quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Yeah.
And it was 3 times that I had to be there, and 3 then became my number of being able to change. And I sold my house because I wasn't able to live in that house myself.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't live in the house, I couldn't look after it. You know, I couldn't look after myself, so I sold it. And then with the $25,000 that I made, a very small amount from the house, I spent that all on, of course, MDMA. But now living at my mum's house, not having to pay any rent, etc., etc. And it was during that time that we had we never had a great relationship. She always, I know today, loved me, but almost didn't know how to. And it was through that time that I went, okay, something's got to change. You know, I've got to get a job. I've got to do something decent. I've got to use what I've experienced to be able to make a better life for me, and also to be able to change that. And that's when I moved to Sea Spray and said, hey, I'm walking along the beach one day just by myself, the beautiful 90-mile beach in Sea Spray, that I was like, let's start a counselling service. And it was a bit of a crazy thought at the time, but I was always known for crazy thoughts. But then when I spoke to a friend and who was kind of in the game and knew how it could happen, I decided to open a beach counselling service and thought, well, hey, I haven't heard about that before. You go and meet at the beach and you go and do counselling. And so that was about to start. and then lockdown happened 4 days later, literally.
Wow.
And I decided to start to set my life up for success. So instead of having Valentine's Day in February, then my birthday in March, and Valentine's Day had regularly been not a fantastically positive experience because I was single. So I thought, well, on my birthday, let's actually make the launch date of MC Counselling, which is now an online addiction and mental health counselling service. And so we did that in 2020, and that was March, and then that weekend we went into lockdown. I'm like, well, what are we going to do? So we went from a beach counselling service to an online counselling service. And in that time, I've met an amazing array of people across Instagram. I never had any idea about Instagram, Daniel, 2 years ago. No idea how it worked. It was always Facebook, and pretty heavy on Facebook, but that was it. And then to have an opportunity to learn something and also have to work another job, but get to know people all around the world was amazing. And, the first year, not really many clients. In fact, pretty much, just a couple. But then it grew in the second year, and knew that I was doing something right and were being different, not just being your typical AA, NA style service that would be the same, which unfortunately is the way that services are funded these days. And unfortunately, because of that, that people that get free treatment don't have as many options as they should have, because people are different. They're not robots. So not one system or one service, one concept fits all. So so I basically set up MC Counselling. It was lots of fun, and was able to change that way. And with the people that follow me, being able to take them along for the journey and to turn some of them into clients, and to be able to help them to live a life that's free of addiction, as well as people that have also had addictions for many years and have tried the other services and have not had the success with those services either.
All right. I need to pick you up on a few things. First of all, I want to say congratulations for what you've done, what you've overcome. I mean, I know that it must be really hard for what you've been through, your childhood traumas, and then getting addicted to drugs, being in a high-profile job, and to be able to come out the other side and then treat people for their addictions is honourable. And also, I wanted to say that with a few different people I've spoken to on the lives, in podcasts, some people have said to me, oh, but I don't have any qualifications, so, I don't really feel like I can actually talk to people about that. And I said, but whatever it is, whether it's alcohol, drugs, anxiety, depression, if you've lived that experience, you are the best person to talk to other people about it. Because you can be the best psychiatrist in the world, the best psychologist in the world, the best counsellor in the world. But if you have no lived experience, then all you're going to do is talk about what you've read in a textbook. And to actually have that lived experience and to learn something, or to be someone with just a lived experience, that changes the dynamic completely, doesn't it? Because you can really empathise and be compassionate to what's happening for that person.
Without a doubt, Daniel. That is so important. And what I love about the Mental Health Royal Commission was the lived experience workforce that we are in the process of having set up in Victoria, which is so important. And to be voted onto the Victorian Alcohol and Drug Association as a board director. And as we were talking about in a board planning day the other day, that we need to start from the top down with lived experience. And at a conference that we've got coming up, that I'm going to talk about, some of my experiences and why it's important for the sector, not just for qualifications. But in saying that, we need qualifications because we need to be able to explain things. We need to be able to be accountable, such as having supervision, clinical supervision, which I have every couple of weeks. But we do need those people that can relate to others. And it's also why on my podcast, Removing Addiction, that I brought on Jessica Gaddies. And with Jess, she has a lived experience, but also a different experience, obviously, to mine, and brings another dimension. And I think having a podcast about addiction, about mental health, having that experience brings in a different dimension of person than people that are just have the qualifications and might have the names to be able to bring onto that podcast. That's what are we actually achieving there? So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Look, and Psych Cafe said life experiences count. One Blue Princess said 100% agree. Use your words said amazing accomplishment. So I just wanted to catch you up on those. Look, I know what you mean when you were saying about doing your diploma and how would you do it. You've never been in that sort of realm. I was like you. I mean, I'd always worked in disability, but when I opened that first textbook for counselling, I was like, this is a completely different language to what I don't understand what they're talking about. You know, like this communication goes with this, and this is a square, and this is a triangle, and how does the triangle and the square go together? And I'm like, I don't know what you're bloody talking about. But I persevered, and I got a mentor that helped me through, I think, the first 6 to 8 books. And after that, she actually said to me, I don't think you need me anymore because you actually now know what you're talking about. And it was just getting my head around that stuff. I mean, some books, you know, I got 60, 70%. I did Gestalt therapy and I got 98%. And afterwards I thought, I don't even know what Gestalt therapy really is. But I obviously understood enough of it to be able to fill in all the questions they asked and put down the, what do you call it, like the technical things that they wanted.
Yes, exactly. And at the end of the day, Daniel, it's about being able to communicate. It's about being able to have the empathy to hear someone's story, to be able to help them work with their story from an understanding point of view. And we only get better at communicating, by getting out of the box and going and having those difficult conversations and really wanting to improve the way that we communicate. And then it just goes from, you know, having, say, in this situation of as being a counsellor and, you know, a few clients to, you know, being basically booked out, you know, which is an amazing achievement, because it's about what people say about you. I mean, we all know that people don't say great things, but because that's just life, because, you know, people have egos. But what it comes down to is that, you know, and like you're a very good communicator. You have a very successful podcast. You are successful because you want to help people. And when you set this up, was at a time that lots of people needed help, and you were able to provide that platform. And that's just an absolute an achievement, big time.
Well, look, at the end of, I can't even remember where we are now and how long the pandemic lasted, but I think it was at the end of, so I started in 2019. Around October, November 2020, I didn't have anyone to come on the podcast because people, at that time, I didn't really know about Zoom. So people were coming in the studio and recording. We couldn't go in the studio. All of a sudden in February, March, when I really pushed on Instagram, I started getting all these connections with people and people saying, can I come on and talk about this? Can I talk about that? And now it's like, I think I've got 30 or 40 people lined up to record. And I keep saying to them, last year what I was doing was recording, say, 10 in 2 weeks. This year I said, look, I don't want you to be waiting 2 or 3 months for your podcast to come out. So I'll just let you know a couple of weeks ahead of when we'll do it, because then that's easier for them, better for me. Because otherwise you get the pressure of people texting you and just going, oh, just wondering when my podcast is coming out. And yeah, I want to tell you when it's coming out, but I don't know because I've got so many coming out.
And that's a great problem to have, Daniel, too. You know, that's a big time.
All right, we've just had use your words, great live, enormously impressed by Mike's passion to help others. Yep, second that. And Redette has been here a couple, I think, of the lives, and and they're happy that I'm really booked up. Fantastic. They're great to have on. They make lots of comments. I love lots of comments because then if we don't know what we're talking about, we can take a comment. Use your words says, keep believing in yourself.
Definitely. Thank you. That's Chrissy. Love you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chrissy. So you know that person. Good.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You're having a drink. You're supposed to be talking.
I know. I normally can do both, but I didn't want to do it while we're doing a live. That's all, you know. You've got yours there as well.
I know. So when you started doing your diploma, what do you think the hardest things were about it? Because you'd been through your drug addiction, you'd been through your trauma when you were younger, so you knew what you wanted to do. What do you think the hardest thing was about starting it? Was it similar to me that you just had no idea where you were going with it, or what to do, or how to interpret what they were writing?
I think pretty much all of that. And then you're in a room, because it was, you know, face to face, it wasn't online, and you're like, oh my God, they know everything. They know everything. It's like, I'll just shut up now. And then it wasn't until I did my placement in Melbourne, and I was doing the working with adolescents and also working with clients with drug and alcohol addictions, that I was able to bring something to the table. And it was at that point I'm like, this is where I'm going to be. This is like, it's definitely AOD, alcohol and other drugs. It's definitely going to be in that sphere of space, and that's where I've had, you know. And it's funny that services hate talking about success rates, because probably they don't work that well. But I think, you know, to be able to have success with somebody is for them to be able to have a better understanding of their life, and to be able to move past addiction, because that's really what it should be about.
And it's also about either them coming to the realization of something, or you helping them to come to that realization, where then it empowers them that they can change, and they, you know, and it can be the smallest thing. I always say about, you know, one small tiny thing, like a grain of sand of information to one person, can change their whole life, and they can spread that on to other people and change their lives. So it doesn't have to be that you're sitting there for 20 hours over 20 weeks talking about things. It could be in the second one, or the fifth one, or the 10th one, or it could take them half a year to realize. And then they get that realization and they go, actually, I know what you're talking about. And, you know, actually I can put that on me and go, yes, that's what I've done. And I can see how I can change that now. And that is just a beautiful moment, isn't it?
Oh, it's an absolutely stunning moment, Daniel. And I think sometimes when I'm talking with my clients in sessions, that I say things that I can tell they don't agree with, but it's great because they then go away and think about it. And that can be their paradigm shift moment, or their aha moment. Like, oh, that's it. That's it. And that's how it relates. And that's beautiful, because it means that they care so much about why they don't like something, or why they did like something, have gone away, might be gardening or doing whatever they do that helps them to think. It could be walking, it could be at the gym, whatever it is, and they get that moment and they come back. And it's funny, when we start the video conferencing session, you're like, oh, I've got something to say here, and you can just tell from the look on their face that, and that is probably the most enjoyable experience, when people come to those realizations for themselves. You might have helped direct them there, or might have given them something that they totally didn't agree with, but that's been what has given them that change. And as you say, it can be those little things, it can be the bigger things, it can just be, you know, them seeing for themselves their life in a different way, because they've left the overthinking behind, because they've decided to go and do something about it, and been able to get that thinking out, you know, and externalize it.
And what you just said is absolutely perfect, because I've heard people in the past, not about me, but say, oh, I went to a counselling session and I came out and, you know, it didn't do anything for me, and I felt like I wasted my money, and I sat there for an hour, and, you know, it was pretty shit, really. But then in the next week, while they're waiting to go to their next appointment, they have the aha moment. And they go, actually, what they said when I was in there, I thought that was a load of shit. And actually, that's really good. That's really resonated with me. It's changed how I think about going to see that person now.
Perfect. Love it. Love that you've had that too. That's so good. I had a friend that's had that. That's very important.
Yeah, I haven't had that. No, of course we've all had that, and that's good, because that's how we relearn, isn't it? That's how we learn that. Well, obviously, maybe I didn't communicate that properly. All right, next week I might try it this way, and then the next week comes and they come in and say, actually, what you said worked, and you think, oh, good, I don't need to go on with that, because it actually did work. So I am still a communicator.
Yes. And I think I had my best counsellor was when I was younger, and remember the old like you write on a sheet, and then you've got the bit of carbon in between, the carbon paper. Then you've got on the other.
Oh no, Mike, I don't remember that. That's way before my time.
The carbon books. So he'd write out all these things, and then he'd take it and go, there you go, do these exercises by next week. And you're like, Yeah, no worries. I've actually still got them. That's what's so cool. And he was with I think the Anglican Church back in the day, but it was just amazing because he would take so much care and so much care. That was really what it was about, helping you to become a better person, and he definitely did do that. And we can look at those people that have made big changes in our lives, and I know I'm grateful for those people that have been there for me in my life, because I definitely am not an easy counselling case.
Right. And look, there are also, through our life, we cross paths with hundreds and hundreds of people. We have interactions. We're best friends for little times, long times. We fall out with friends. We come back to friends. And I think out of every single situation, there's something that you learn from that. And it might be that you learn to forgive someone, or you learn that you made the mistake. And sometimes people just cut people off, or they go off and say, I'm not talking to that person anymore, or this person upset me. And they don't try and resolve it. And I'm saying that because a friend of mine that I had 20 years ago, we just sort of drifted apart, and now we've come back together. And it's a really great thing, because I learned some things from how we sort of split. And I think she's probably learned some things. And there was lots of other things, other interactions from other people going on. But I don't think I would have really grasped that whole idea if I hadn't gone and studied counselling. Because once I studied that, a lot of stuff that held me down just drifted away, because I realised I don't need to be worried about all these things that I worry constantly about. Or, and I say this as well, that I used to, and the mentor I had said, Dan, you always think in black and white. You've got to realise that in the middle of black and white, there are hundreds of shades of grey, and they're all different opportunities. And once I started thinking like that, I was like, my God, there are so many opportunities. Whereas I always thought yes and no, this or that, and doing the counselling, like I've said to a few people, do a counselling diploma or a mental health certificate, not because you want to treat other people, but because it will really open your mind and get you to understand yourself better than anything you can ever do.
Oh, and that's so well said, Daniel, because I never intended to do a diploma. I intended to do a couple of subjects so I could understand people a bit better for my radio show. And then it ended up like that. And the way it's going, I might do a master's, and I might do, God forbid, if my mum's listening, a PhD in addiction, because it's so needed, all of this, the more people that are in the field, the better. And the people that challenge the current status quo of the way things are done, the better too, because that means we actually help people instead of just ticking a box.
I think one of the best things that could happen in Australia is that the federal government get on board with offering Medicare subsidies to counsellors, because psychologists and psychiatrists all have that, and yet they say we should be able to get clients ourselves. It's hard when a psychologist charges, say, $220, and your only out of pocket is $25. And yet if they want to come and see us, it could be $100 to $150, maybe more. And we can't offer them that discounted rate because we're not classed as, I guess, as important as a psychologist.
Exactly. Isn't it funny, Daniel, that I actually opened up this letter today from the Australian Counselling Association with their latest concept, or their latest go of basically getting counsellors included in Medicare. And I literally got that from the post office today. It's on my desk here, and then we're talking about it, because it is so true. When I did a lot, and it wasn't a live, it was just a video, I think, on Instagram a while back, and there was 33,000 psychiatrists, clinical psychologists and psychiatrists in Australia that obviously have Medicare. However, there's another 33,000 counsellors that could be helping people and be part of that 10 or 20 session mental health treatment care plan. And I think so we could double this and then still have people waiting, but at least more people could be able to do it. And that's exactly what, and somebody says here, I've had some dreadful psychologists, never struck a bad counsellor. Yes, totally.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
We love that comment. Yeah. And can I just add to that, when we had the pandemic, I saw that the federal government were thinking of training people in a mental health certificate to help with the counselling they needed. And yet there's all us counsellors out here that could benefit from having that Medicare rebate so that we could go out and treat all those people. And we're qualified a lot more than a Cert 4, a hell of a lot more. And yet they were going, no, we don't think we need them. We think we need to train our own workforce. And it's like, why would you do that when we're already all here? We're all on the ground. We're all ready to go. And yet you're deciding that. And another thing, the Australian Counselling Association, great association. However, they have been trying to get onto Medicare, I think now for at least 10, 15 years. And they haven't been able to do it yet. I think you might have trained at the same place as I did. Maybe you didn't. But I joined ACA, and then when I got fibromyalgia and I couldn't work, I asked them if I could just put my membership on hold. And it was going to cost me $200 to have it on hold or $200 to stay a member. And I said, I'm not working. There's no work because I can't work. I'm too sick. And they said, well, you'll have to let it lapse. So I let it lapse and I've never gone back, unfortunately. But that was because I felt like I was hard done by because I was sick and I couldn't work. I sent them a letter and they said I still had to pay $200 a year to be even just on their books.
Yeah, no, that's not a good example for the ACA because I think that they are moving a little bit more with the times, dare I say. And yes, they have been working for 10 or 15 years. And the other thing too, Daniel, if I could add, is that the training that comes up is only available for people that actually work in government-funded services. So it's like no one else can do it. But if you're in a government-funded service, however, there's not enough government-funded services to service the people that are actually out there at the moment.
There's not, because you look at something like Headspace in Australia, which I think is between either 14 or 16-year-olds to 24, 25-year-olds. And it's to offer counselling, psychology, all those services to those people in that group. And if you've got depression and anxiety, unless you are in that 1 or 2%, which is critical depression or anxiety, they don't have room on their books. And that's where the government needs to look and go, well, if we actually put more funding into this, we can help these people when they're young, help them through all these things, give them the tools to be able to work through it and be able to manage it. And by the time they're 25, 30, they will no longer be looking for psychologists or counsellors, which, you know, I mean, I know we work in the field, but I always look at it that if there was a time when we weren't needed, brilliant. And if they were to be looking after that group now, when they're young, when they're going through school, and teach them how to deal with the issues they've got, they probably wouldn't need help in the future.
Totally agree. And yes, I'm totally up for, I would love for us not to be needed. Unfortunately, what the world presents to us 2 years ago, what it does right now, it's even more so. In saying that, I think it's really positive that people are asking for help now. And in Australia, as you would very well know, Daniel, we are quite behind many other parts of the world, such as America, such as the UK, with talking about addiction, with talking about mental health and reducing the stigma. In Australia, you're doing an amazing job. And I know you've got lots of followers in the UK, which is amazing. And so that's so important because they can really help that, and to do events like this to help take the stigma and to say to people, hey, if you are struggling, there's nothing bad about struggling because you can get help and you don't have to do this alone and you don't have to be in your head the whole time. You can get help, and then the waits are horribly long, so people make that decision. It's a little bit like with addiction when we try to, help people say, I want to give up my addiction. But then, oh, yeah, cool, we can see you in 6 months. It's like, yeah, mate, I'll be gear by then, let's be honest. So, yeah, it's an interesting one and one that, we can't change at the moment, but we can try and do what we can to let people come out and say that they need help and promote that and see. There is obviously an election coming up, as somebody did put their way. Insurance companies continue to pay for telehealth services since pandemic, yes, and I'm actually in the middle of doing my first aid this week, so then I can do health insurance with Bupa and a couple of others as well, which I'm looking forward to being able to do.
But see, look, that's fantastic that insurance companies are doing that. It's, however, the people who are really low income earners who can't afford to see a counsellor because we don't get Medicare rebate. If they do see a psychologist, usually I think that they are, yes, they can get in. Well, look, it still depends if they can pay the part in the middle of $20 to $50, $60. I know there's a couple of agencies around Melbourne who offer like a day or half a day where they see people who have got no money or refugees, people like that, which is fantastic. I did want to take you back because you said that England and America are a lot better. They are in certain ways. But however, in the UK, if you needed to go and see someone for, let's just say, anxiety, you would see your doctor and then you would be passed on to the National Health Service. You might be lucky to get a phone call in about 6 to 8 weeks, which is CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. And then you're on the wait list to actually see someone face to face. You don't see them face to face. You get a phone call to do CBT over the phone. In Australia, we do have it a little bit better, that I think you'd be waiting about 4 to 6 weeks to be able to get into a paid service, maybe on the Medicare rebate. But yeah, it's all about money, isn't it? And I know I've had this argument with people who say, oh, well, look, if you do counselling, Dan, you know, why do you have to charge $120 an hour? Well, you know, if you come to me and say, I've only got $50 and that's all I can afford, I'll help you. But the other thing is that they don't take into the account of how much personal development we have to do, professional development we have to do a year to keep our points up. The amount we spend on, you said it before, I can't remember the name of it, supervision.
Yeah.
We've also got to pay a huge amount for insurance each year. We've got to pay for a premises that we're working from. So there's a lot of things that, say, if you charge $100 an hour and your tax, you might end up with $40 for that hour.
Very, very true. And it's not just that; it's the continuation of, as you say, ACA fees per year. It's insurance. You know, we've got to be insured as well. And then so there's so much other. You know, it's easier to be able to operate from home because for sure your costs are low, but for people that have got brick and mortar businesses, you know, they've got to pay their rent for those businesses. They've got to pay the electricity. They've got to do all of that. And that's really my hope, and not my hope. It's that this is what I'm doing is presenting with problematic substance use and addiction reprogramming a program that we will use, that people will be able to access in the future for free, that will be provided by the government, that people will be able to leave addiction, not have it as part of their whole lives. And it starts with me, it starts with you, it starts with every one of us deciding to make a change. And that's how change happens.
And look, I mean, the thing with addiction is I think we also need more facilities open at a cheaper price. I had a friend 4 or 5 years ago using a lot of ice, psychosis. He went into recovery, and I think for that 12, 16 weeks cost him about $25,000, $30,000. And he was lucky that he could borrow it from a friend who paid for him to go. And at the time I said, my God, you know, you better hope that he recovers. Luckily he did, because then he started working and he started paying his friend back. But, you know, there are people out there who don't have that option, and there would be a limited amount of free spaces for people who can't afford it, wouldn't there? And I guess it's also going on who has the biggest addiction that we need to treat first. And this is sometimes the problem, because you could have someone with a small addiction who's just getting into it and says, I need help. And if they have to wait for everybody else to go through, by the time they get there, they've probably got a huge addiction.
Yeah, big time. And we've got some great people here that are giving some beautiful comments, Dan. You've got some really great. I'm going to say,
do you want to read them out?
Yeah. Daily Positive Talks has joined. Radette, I don't know how I'm still here. We are glad that you are still here, Radette. Thank you. With Grace Guide, also Site Cafe. I'm working 7 days a week since pandemic. Mental health needs continue to rise. They certainly do. And thanks, Site Cafe, for giving us lots of beautiful comments tonight. So appreciate that.
And use your words, I think, with your friend Chrissy said, continue to live your best life, everyone. Got to get ready for work. Blix Girl said a few months, unless it's a new psychologist. So, yeah, I think she means there that unless the psychologist is newly started out, then you're going to get on their books a lot quicker than someone who's established. A friend of mine opened her business just around the corner from where my business is. And within 12 months, she's got 4 fully qualified psychs and provisional psychs and provisional psychs working for her. Mm-hmm. She is slammed. She's opened a second one. She's slammed there as well. And she said, Dan, there are just so many people coming forward. I just have to keep opening more spots because we need to help these people. And she's one of the people who does a day free each week to help people who have no money at all.
That is amazing. That's so cool. That's really good. Mm-hmm.
We better say to Psych Cafe there, who said thank you for this podcast, this live. If you want to hear a really good podcast, you can go to mine, which is Life Changes You podcast. There's 152 episodes there covering everything you could think of. And you can go to Mike's one, which is
Removing Addiction and Healing Mental Health. And also
Removing Addiction and Healing Mental Health. Good.
And Titanium, the Intersex podcast too.
Okay, so look, there you go. There's some new podcasts that you guys can go and listen to. There's always information on there about lots of different topics. When I started, I didn't know who I was going to interview. I just knew I wanted to be in mental health, and I've covered autism, I've covered disability, I've covered anorexia, I've covered juvenile suicide awareness. I've covered predators, child predators. So many different people come forward and people that I've gone, ooh, I want to talk to you. I think there was a really good one the other week that you might like called Nexium. Have you heard of the cult of Nexium?
Yeah, briefly, I have.
No.
It's for... I think I
well,
have.
She was one of the survivors who actually blew the whistle on the cult and got the head of the cult, who I had his name and I forgot, but he's just got Ranieri. He's just got 120 years in jail, and so have some of the other people. So that was a really good podcast. Anyway, tell me one of your podcasts that's really good that people should go and listen to.
Yeah, okay. So with Titanium, it was basically me discovering intersex and having no idea about podcasts, unlike your 157 episodes. Well done, Dan. I was like, okay, instead of like just doing it and like writing it and thinking, oh, that'd be a good idea, I basically had the mic and I started doing it. So it's extremely raw. But what I was wanting to do with that was to basically be able to help people that might be discovering that they are different and that that their life might not be worth living because they are so different. And the suicides for the LGBTQI plus community, as we know, is very high. And to do my part to reduce that. And in doing that, I started talking all about my psychosis that I have briefly discussed tonight. And with that psychosis, it's in a lot more detail. In fact, there's a whole series on that. And what came about was, they're the most listened to episodes, but something that I thought, would be okay. It's got just under 2,000 listens. And probably compared to yours, that's nothing. But with something that you had no idea how I was going, I was pretty impressed with that, to be honest with you.
And you should be. Look, not all my podcasts are blowing out of the water. There are different ones. Look, I did the one on child predators, which is something I'm really passionate about how we stop the abuse in children. And that was a really low rating episode. And the only thing I can think of is that people don't want to go there in their head and think about what's happening out there. Also the one on youth suicide. Yeah, when I did a live with that person, we had quite a few people. When I did the podcast, not many people listened. And I think it's the same thing. Do parents want to hear about that? Like, oh, my child's fine, I don't need to listen to that. And maybe you're the person, that's the person who does need to listen, because we don't know what's going on in the child's mind. So that's End the Silent Epidemic. They're on here. And they've been on the podcast. So if you want to find them on Instagram, it's End the Silent Epidemic. And they do really good work with young people. And they also have a couple of girls that work for them who are 16, who actually do little videos each week that then speak to other kids of that age and tell them about, talk to someone, all that sort of stuff. That if I was, as a 50-year-old man, to go, oh, here's a video, don't contemplate suicide at 15, 15-year-olds aren't going to listen to me because I'm too old. But if you've got 15, 16-year-olds on there putting videos like that out, that's amazing. It's so good we've got these sort of things out there for everybody. The guy who spoke about anorexia, he was 12. Now, I had him on because I've never had anyone talk to me about male anorexia. I've had lots of females come forward and say, can I talk? I've done one podcast with one of them. But for him, I thought there would be so many young men out there who would be thinking, oh, I don't want to eat, I want to be skinnier, I want to be musclier. You know, that's what we need to get out there so that other people hear it. I'm talking too much, Mike. You go on.
No, I love it. I'm reading some of the comments too. But it is important to get lots of these topics that do strike a chord with people, because it is important to have it out there. And whether it's listened to, and this is what I've discovered, and you probably have too, Dan, because you're much better at this than I am. But you do something, and then like 12 months later, it's like you get your podcast report, and you're like, wow, okay, what suddenly happened that has meant that, you know, 20 or 30 listens of that show back then. And then I'm like, is that because maybe someone was looking at psychosis in school, or was it an issue with a certain group and they wanted to get some more information, or you know, always around Intersex International Awareness Day, there's always a lot more listens. But I haven't done anything on titanium since September last year, and every week, you know, I mean, it was 20 listens last week, but it's still like there's I'm not promoting it or anything. It's just literally out there.
Promote it. Why shouldn't you promote it?
Yeah, well,
that's what you're doing. You're doing good stuff. And as I say to people, like the podcasts and these lives, we don't get paid for them. We do them because we want to help people, and we want to have a conversation that other people can listen into and take bits of information from. Psych Cafe has just said human trafficking and pedophilia on the rise. It really is. And unfortunately, I work in disability. And what I heard through the pandemic was there were quite a few people out there who were opportunistic. What's the word? Opportunistic.
Yeah, opportunistic.
Yeah. Who took advantage of people with a disability who didn't have anyone else in their home, you know, and that makes me feel sick that during a time like that, when someone with a disability is having a hard time even trying to work out why they can't go to their day program or why they can't go and see their friend or go to the cinema, and then you've got someone coming in who's physically abusing them mentally or sexually, that sickens me that someone could do that.
And fortunately, that is definitely the case. I've got friends that work with NDIS and also with disability, and have had to report on that, actually, which is great that they're reporting on it. Very, very upsetting that they know about it and have had to do that. And they're obviously people that they know and work with. So yes.
Yeah. And Blixa Girl says so much bigotry and fear and hate, and I think that is one of the biggest problems. Is fear and hate. Is they're combined because people fear what they don't know, and they don't want to go out and find out about it. They instead just fear it and not learn anything from it or about it. And I think that's where we get hate crimes and things like that, because people they're scared of it. But why don't they just go and find out some information and realize that it's not a big scary world? It's fine to go and talk to someone or go online and find out, you know.
Mm-hmm. And that's
I wanted
what
to say to you as well, I did an autism one, I think in October last year, and that still regularly gets people listening. And I've found that people have said, you know, autism is something, these are mainly people with children with autism. They said, we can't find the information we need. It's still I guess it's still one of those mental health, disabilities that not a lot's known about. So until it's been brought into the forefront, people are still looking for information. And I spoke to Nicole Rogerson from Autism Awareness Australia, and they're doing amazing stuff. And she said when her son was first diagnosed with autism, they had no idea where to go to. So they've now created this free handout for the first year of life so that parents can actually get this booklet, get information, and find out where all the specialists are.
Amazing. So important. That's great work there. That'll help so many families.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we need more advocates. The vulnerable. We've got, sadly, I've been a whistleblower and retaliation is frightening. That's from Psych Cafe. I imagine it would be awful. What I was saying about the lady from Nexium, she lived in fear for the first 6 months that they did try and get her into court and charge her with all these different things. She was lucky enough that she got her story picked up by the New York Times, and then that's when it blew up and everything happened and started moving forward. You know, I don't know how it would be to be a whistleblower. I commend you, because to have be that brave to be able to stand up and say what you think is going wrong, and, you know, pull people up on it is an amazing thing that you've done.
Without a doubt.
TikTok has been the impetus for many adult ADHD diagnosis. I spoke to a girl on here from Sugar and Sloth, and she won't mind me sharing the story, and also in a podcast. And she actually runs a business which draws little cartoon characters with mental health slogans. And by doing her lives each week, she actually had a few people come forward and say, "Oh, how long have you had ADHD for?" She said, "I don't have ADHD." And then after a little while, she sat with it and thought, actually, maybe I do. And she Googled it, looked it up. She's in the UK. She's waiting to see a specialist in the UK. But she said, "Dan, it just changed my whole life, because I realised I do have this thing, and I'm not just crazy and working all day." You know, there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of being on a live, being in a podcast.
Oh, definitely. And as well, Dan, the courage it takes to actually do a live, to do a video, to get in front of the camera, you know. And I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Being a bit older, that we might feel that way, but it seems to be that the younger generation, Snapchat's obviously the big thing, and you know, and doing more videos. But you know, to get up and do it, and to talk about things you feel about that can then be, you know, not in our case, but in other people's case, used against them, is a really tough thing. And so for people to watch and to comment, muchly appreciated always, and for people to follow. And I always believe too that it's the people that we don't know, that listen, that watch, that don't ever comment or like, that we're actually helping the most, because they're the people that aren't ready to come out in whatever capacity to say that they need help or need help, especially in the case of addiction. But I'm sure the same with mental health too. And they're people I like to shout out to every now and then too, that we, you know, do appreciate you being here and being part of this as well. Just want to say hi to Stargazer Dan, who's a big supporter of MC Counselling. Great to have you there, Dan. Good to have you on this show as well, with the other Dan.
The two Dans.
Yes.
Look, I would rather come on a live like this and chat to you than sit down and record a podcast solo. I find sitting and recording a podcast on my own so draining. I don't know if my voice sounds right. I don't know if my information is good. Whereas when I do this, it just has to come out, you know? So there's no... And when you were talking earlier and telling us an overview of what had happened in your life, I was thinking, geez, I need a pen and paper because I've got questions I want to ask. But it doesn't matter, because we move on and then we just find where we go.
Yeah, no, totally, exactly, and that's what's so good about it, isn't it? That you do have that opportunity, and even people come up with questions as you're going, and once you've got, you know, that there, it makes it a whole lot easier. And yes, I probably did go a bit too fast before, but it's like, I've got to get this out. I'm going to forget where I'm up to and stuff. But did you have anything that I mentioned earlier that you wanted to touch?
I can't remember now because you got it out too quick. That's what I was saying. I was looking down here to see if I had a pen and paper to write those questions down. But it doesn't matter because we've still had a great conversation. We've got lots of things out. Lots of people have heard different things about us. And a Psych Cafe says, my story made AP News Sunday front pages reporting sex abuse crimes in the state psych hospitals. Wow. Well done to you for getting that story out. I know that it would have been it would have been traumatic for you, not only sharing the information, but then waiting to find out what would happen afterwards. And as you said, retaliation was life-threatening, but I'm glad I did it. Someone has to. Well done to you. If there's anyone else that's watching now and wants to ask us any questions, feel free to ask us questions. We're not the oracles of everything, but as you can see, Mike and I know how to talk about mental health and, you know, everything under mental health. Any issues that you want to raise, we'll try and discuss them.
Yeah, definitely. Love to have those questions. Dan, if you've got some questions, as in Stargazer Dan that's there, because you're always very, very inspiring and very, very supportive of MC Counselling. Maybe you've got something you want to bring out, or maybe because I mentioned your name, that wasn't the right thing to do. Sorry. Can't win, can I? I'm so good at that. But people
No. But see, people would see his name come up anyway, wouldn't they? They'd see his question. That's okay. It doesn't matter.
somebody once said to me, "Oh, Mike, if you just slow down a bit, it'd be better." I'm like, no, if you keep talking at this speed, people actually have to stop doing what they're doing and listen to you.
Well, look, I did want to ask you now, I'm thinking back while we're talking. So you said that you never got the opportunity to meet your biological father. Have you had the opportunity to meet your biological mother?
Yes, I have. And
yeah,
there's an interesting story. So I met her when I was 16, and then I was told that no, I was never to contact her again.
Can I ask you how old you are now?
Yeah, for sure. 25.
Are you?
No, 45. 45 last week.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Go on then.
Yeah, and so then she said, if you wanted to contact me, send a letter to her auntie, my great auntie. She'll then forward it, of which I said, forget it. Don't want anything more to do with you. That's it. And then on Mother's Day a couple of years ago on Facebook, I found her and I sent her a letter about how I felt about her. It wasn't a very pleasant letter, but it actually was an amazing way. I talk a lot about, and I'm sure you do as well, about journaling things and journaling feelings and getting things out of your head. And so I definitely did that at that time. Definitely not appropriate, definitely appropriate for the times, and definitely got the message across and really helped me to go, you can do anything. We can do things that may be inappropriate but are important to do, and things that people need to see. And I think even more so when people are trying to set up an image of themselves that isn't actually accurate, such as because she owns successful fashion stores in actually LA these days.
Wow.
and has so for 30 odd years. So it doesn't want to be known as the girl at 14 who had a baby who put him up for adoption and then met him, but then decided that was it.
And look, I mean, well done to you. And whatever you wrote in that letter, however raw it was what you needed to say at that time. And so you should never go back and think, oh, I shouldn't have said this or I shouldn't have said that. It was exactly what you needed to say. And for her, look at what a person she's missing out on. You're empathetic, you're compassionate, you're happy. And yes, you've had your shit that's gone down, but you're where you are now. You're helping other people. You're doing something that is putting back into the community, back into the world. And if she doesn't come around, and I'm not saying you want her to come around, but if she doesn't come around in years to come and go, well done, Mike, I'm so sorry that I treated you that way, then all for her, because she's missing out on something that she could have a really great experience with you, and that's on her, not you. You don't take any blame for that. Her choice, your choice is to carry on, help other people, be compassionate, and you're doing exactly what you should be doing in life.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you very much.
I think it's true. I don't think you have to have any responsibility on what's happened, because you've written her a letter. Who cares if it was something she didn't like to read? Maybe in her head it's gone, oh, actually, maybe I am this person. Maybe she doesn't care. But, you've got it out of your system and you've been able to move on and help other people. And, you're creating what you want to create. You've come through some big shit, and you have, if anyone says to you, you don't inspire them, who are they? Because just listening to your story tonight, we've talked on and off in DMs, voice messages, stuff like that. But to actually hear your story and what you've been through, wow, mate, you've done so well, so well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to be able to help other people. That's really what it comes down to. And I want to be that change in the world. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Look, we have got some messages now. So we've got Psych Cafe, turning your scars into stars. Love you, Mikey. Stargazer Dan, if it's anything I have learnt, life is too bloody short. Psych Cafe has given you some claps. And I don't know what those little emojis are. They're hands like this on a face. What does that mean? Or like that? I don't know. Love that at Psych Cafe. Yeah, look, lots of love to you, Mike. I don't know if you're actually called Mikey, but
Mikey, yeah,
Mikey, love there.
Yeah, thank you, yes. Yeah. No, it's thank you, Dan. Hello there as well. He's giving a funny, I think it's a big grin of an emoji. There's so many different emojis these days, aren't there? It's great.
Yeah, look, a fantastic live, guys. Really enjoyed it from one blue princess. One blue princess watches most of my lives, and I think she says that everyone is fantastic. She really loves them, and I love her coming along and listening every week.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so good.
And Redette has said, please do more lives. I did one last week with Leandra, who couldn't stay to watch because she was going to the dentist. And I think that was where we met you, Redette, and you really loved that one and wanted us to come back and do another one. Leandra will be back again in about 6 weeks. I'm going to start, what's that called when you come back? Returning guests.
I was going to say recycling, but that doesn't sound right. But like, if it's, yeah, like, because I've done the same with every guest on Removing Addiction. It's like, we'll get you back, we'll get you back. It's like, yeah, cool, that's gonna. But then you're like, when do you do that? Like after 150 episodes, or do you do it after like?
Well, see, look, that's why I started doing the lives, because I was having so many being pushed back for the podcast. Redette says, met you with Lisa, Simply Anxious. She was on a few, about 3 weeks ago. So yeah, what I started doing was I got people that I'd done podcasts with that I really liked to come on the lives, and also some people like yourself that I'd like to do a podcast with, but at the moment I don't have time to do it. So if we do a live, then we can get you on and chat, and then we can plan the podcast in 6 months. No, after I've spoken to you now, I want to get that podcast down with you pretty quick.
All right, perfect. Mission accomplished.
But yeah, you can be a returning guest, because I think every 6 to 8 weeks, if we had people coming back, people love the story, love the person. I mean, why not come on and chat for an hour? And
yeah. Perfect. Always available. It's really, you're doing a great job, Dan. It's lovely to be on this live with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, look, you're so welcome. I wasn't sure what to expect, but look at what a great conversation we've had.
Yeah, exactly. Total truth there. I can't talk now. Total truth is what I'm trying to say.
Total truth. Well, we have been an hour and 7 minutes now.
Yeah, there we go.
It doesn't feel like that, does it?
No, it doesn't. Yes, no, it doesn't. It doesn't feel like that at all. It's the fact that it's my second live today, and it's the second.
Is this only your second one?
Second live, as in live with someone else today. And then I think it actually is full. Yes, I did a brief one with the Cheesecake Man Melbourne at Miss Columbia's Cafe in Albert Park. He'll love that little snips there. And he does great cheesecake, amazing. But it was like, we did one that wasn't supposed to be like that. It was just one of those mornings I felt, what has happened with the world? Let's just do something a bit of fun. And I was out the front out the front of my place, just being an idiot as I can be every now and then. And then we did one. That was the only one. So I've done 2 today, and they've been being guest, but being for like an hour, which, I don't get me wrong, being on the radio previously, I love doing a live, but it's just making sure that you feel comfortable, and you've definitely done that tonight. Made me feel very comfortable, Dan. So thank you.
That's fantastic. That's good. Look, Psych Cafe says, new to podcasts, how do I get notice of your live podcast? So if you're talking about these lives on Instagram, for me, I'm on every Wednesday at this time. I don't know if you're in the UK or Australia. So in the UK this time, but next week, I'm actually talking to someone from Miami. So I will be on in Australia at 7:30 a.m., 8:30 p.m. on the Tuesday night in England, and 4:30 p.m. in Miami.
Nice. Nicely said. Well done. Well done.
That was good to get those times out, wasn't it? Because usually I stuff them up.
I'm very good at that. Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, but now, look, if next Wednesday, if you want to watch it and you can tune in at this time and I'm not here, you can just go to, what is it called, my bio, and you can watch the live that was recorded in the morning, because with Miami, America, we've got to do them really early in the morning, because otherwise they're fast asleep.
Yes, exactly. And can people see these ones afterwards as well?
Yep. So after this will be up on Instagram, where you can find it in the bio under videos. And then also, if it's all right with you, Mike, I'll put it on my YouTube channel, where people can go and watch it anytime they like.
Definitely.
So my YouTube channel also is Life Changes You. Everything is Life Changes You. Life Changes You podcast here. Life Changes You is the actual podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google. Life Changes You on Twitter. Life Changes You on on Facebook. I'm everywhere. I don't have a lot of followers on Twitter and Facebook because I don't focus on them. I've got a lot of followers here because I just do all my work on here now.
I love it. And I love you got 110,000. It's amazing. Well done to you.
Do you know what, though? Like last year, it was 121,000 and it's gone down to 108. That's okay. During COVID, I was doing 10 updates a day. So there was always stuff going out. I think people really love the positivity during COVID. And I think as COVID sort of started moving on, people are getting back to their normal lives. And even me, I do one probably update a day, maybe two. But I don't have time with the lives, with the podcast, with working. We are only human, aren't we, Mike?
That's correct. That's the way I felt today. Exactly. It's like we've got one thing to the next, and then have you got a bird? Have you got a parrot in the background?
Yes, I do have a parrot. It's a little lovebird.
Okay, that's hilarious because I've just put mine to bed. I've got a rainbow lorikeet called Roman, and Roman because Roman makes lots of noise during counselling usually. So like you can go to bed, and I'm like. I was thinking, is that my bird? And it doesn't sound like that. And I'm like, where is it? And then I've heard it a couple of times. Like, it must be at Dan's house.
I always forget to cover the bird because I never cover the bird. And then someone said to me on a live a couple of weeks ago, why don't you just cover the bird up? It won't make any noise. I'm like, oh, what a great idea. And unless you had told me, I don't even hear the bird anymore.
I think because of the
girl
noise.
Is saying it's, yeah, go on.
No, I think it's
sharp.
Yes, and it's like I hear it, but you don't, and it's the same. I think with Roman, someone would be like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I can hear a bird. It's like, "Oh, that's just Roman. I'll just shut the door."
So Blixer Girl said link in bio, so I think she's talking about where the videos are. Site Cafe. Oh, okay. I just followed you. Looking forward to seeing you again. Follow Mike as well at mccounselling on Instagram, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and in there as well, you'll find links to his podcast, Psych Cafe. If you go to my bio on Instagram, you can click on my link tree. Underneath it says, listen to the podcast. Click on that link, and then you can find Spotify, you can find YouTube, you can find everything in there. Do you use Linktree, Mike? Yes,
I do. Only recently, though. I probably could have done that a couple of years ago. But yes, all of my podcasts are there as well, and all of my links to LinkedIn and all the rest as well. Yes.
Fantastic. Am I following you on LinkedIn?
I don't think so. We can do that. We can follow each other. Yes, brilliant.
Yeah, because I just did Linktree last week. I'd been thinking about it for ages, but as I say, as I'm getting older, I'm a bit technophobic, so I'm a bit, oh God, how do I do this? And I actually set up Linktree in like about 10 minutes, and I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah,
and I've been putting it off for months.
Because I thought it would be hard to do, so I'm like, I'm here doing it one day, then Mum turns up, I'm like, Mum, I'm going to be a bit, and I'm like, oh, it's done. It's done very quickly. We can go out. And it just makes it so much easier for people, I think, because, you know, they can find what they want to find, and we can change the names. We can make it look really, really funky if we want to, or we can just keep it plain. It's got all the stuff there.
Yeah, look, it's so easy because I had a link there to my website, which had a player on it. And then apparently the player, there's no sound. And then when I put Linktree in, then I could use the Apple podcast in there, Spotify. And Spotify's just gone through the roof in the last week. Like, who'd have thought that having a link there to Spotify would actually get more people listening?
Oh, I think Spotify definitely coming up in the world with podcasts. We get lots of listens from that one.
Site Cafe just said, love the positivity and your accents. Redette said, oh, no, haha, hee. Site Cafe said, love the bird. Redette, me too. And then we had Redette, yes. Site Cafe, yes, I follow Mike. That's how I got notice of this podcast.
Oh, awesome.
Fantastic. Redette, tell me about it, huh? Is there any questions before we sign off? Does anyone want to ask us anything? Anything at all? Well, some things, not everything. But this is why I love doing these. You know, before I do a live, probably for about half an hour before, I feel exhausted and like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Oh, why am I doing it? And then as soon as I get on here, I wake right up, and now I fall asleep for about 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's it. Totally. I feel the same way. When I used to finish radio at midnight, I'd go home like, okay, what's happening now? You know, like when my flatmate's asleep, got to be quiet. Oh, okay, but then still up for hours because you're just in that, you know, in that mode, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I bet one thing, Mike, that you're happy about is that when you were in that addiction phase, you didn't have social media?
Oh, yes. Very, very glad. Oh,
Because,
yes.
look, I saw someone's Instagram post the other day, and there was like 7 pictures. The first couple, lovely pictures. They're out at a bar having a good time. The last one was like smoking something, eyes back in the head. And I thought, God, you know, would you want that to be on your Instagram, you know, in years to come? Might not worry you now. Stargazer Dan said, you guys look tired as, do we? Maybe it's just because we're old.
Well, Dan, I've been going all day, but that's okay.
You know, we can't have everything. We've got all this wisdom, so we can't have good looks as well at this time of night.
You'll keep, Dan, you'll keep.
All right, I think we should just end up there, Mikey. Mikey, I'm calling you Mikey now. It's Mike.
Dan, it's wonderful. No, thanks so much, Dan. It was lots of fun. I'd love to do it again and love to be on your podcast when time is of the essence for you, or whenever you're able to do that. That'll be a lot of fun.
Well, look, I mean, the good thing for us is we're both in Melbourne or in Victoria, Australia. So yeah. I will probably be in contact with you. Well, after this, I will be. But then probably in the next week or two, and we'll get something down because it's easy on time zones.
Yes, totally.
Now, Blixer Girl says you're both sweetly pretty. That's lovely.
Thank you.
And Redette says, please do, loved it. So thank you all for listening and watching and enjoying what we do here. Good looking and full of positive energy. Thank you from the USA. What time is it there, Site Cafe? Good looking and full of positive energy. Thank you from the USA. I think she's talking about you, Mike.
I think both of us probably. But thank you. We'll take that as a compliment. I'm not gonna say no.
No. Do you know whereabouts? What is the time in the USA now? 9:30 at night.
3. It's about 3 in the morning.
Yeah, I thought it was about 3 or 4 in the morning.
3, 4 in the morning. Yeah.
That's okay, Mike.
Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. Let's keep in contact. We'll do 5 a.m. when podcast started. Wow. Thank you. Let's get in contact in the next week or two, and we'll set a podcast down. Then I can get that out quick so that these guys who have heard us tonight can catch up on anything they missed and anything extra we want to bring into it. You take care of yourself, mate. It was brilliant to talk to you. I'm really rapt that I asked you to come on.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be on too, Dan. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.